And we have drama, ladies and gentlemen. One of my all time favorite players is upset. And we're going to get into it. Tennis in a minute. I'm your host, Good Energy. Tennis After Dark. We are in the studio and we need to discuss this because this is one of my favorite players, a teenage prodigy. Yes, guys, the one and only Caroline Wozniacki. Now, her father is upset. He said, look, the WTA, they take us for a joke. We are not playing the French Open next year, and they are certainly not playing it this year, as Caroline Wozniacki, one of the players, snubbed on that wild card list. Now, I talked about this a month and a half ago. I told you guys the players that were going to get in. I told you all of the French players that I told you would get in got in. And Caroline Wozniacki is upset, ladies and gentlemen. This is tough, and we need to really get into this tonight. We're going to discuss this. Comment below as we progress in this video. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Like the video, show some love, hit the super thanks. Now, I said Elise Cornet, Bonjour, comment allez-vous would get in. I said Fiona Farrow would get in. I said I want to see Elsa Jacquemont get in. I said I want to see Chloe Paquette, Jessica Ponce get in. Now, couple players that were a little bit not really expected. We now Isla Tomjanovic, yes, she we all know she had the injury a couple years ago, so she had priority, but I didn't necessarily expect her to get in. Sasha Vickery, didn't really necessarily expect Sasha to get in. But what about the likes of Emma Raducanu snubbed? Simona Halep also snubbed. Venus Williams snubbed. So if we take a look at the players like Simona Halep, who we know is injured now, but Venus Williams, I mean, they've all had better careers than Caroline Wozniacki. But Caroline, guys, former world number one, she retired with 30 championships, one slam, right? Former number one. We all know she won the Australian Open, amazing title. But she also made a couple U.S. Open finals where she would lose. I mean, do I need to remind you guys? She's big time. She's super duper big time, right? She took, I mean, that 2009 U.S. Open run, Petra Martic, Team Vegan in the building, Sorana Cirstea. What about Wick Meyer? She would lose to Kim Clusters, right? The great Kim Clusters in the championship match. But she also made the U.S. Open championship in 2014, where she had another good run, right? She took out Alexandra Sasnovich. Andrea Petkovic would not be dancing anymore. She would lose to Serena in the finals in straight sets 6-3, 6-3. But I want to take a look at someone she beat on that U.S. Open Championship final appearance run in the quarterfinal. Sarah Irani. Now, this is what I want to get into, guys. I want to pivot because Sarah Irani, she is the number one qualifier in the French Open draw, right? So someone as great as Sarah Irani, who's coming off of that Rome championship where her and Jasmine Pellini defeated Coco Gauff and company in that championship match. She's a veteran, right? She's had a very, very good career. She's the number one seed in qualifier. She's not complaining. Now, of course, we didn't expect Sarah Irani to get a wild card, but she's a veteran, right? She's going to go get it in the mud. She's the number one seed in qualifiers. And I bring that up because Caroline Wozniacki, we take a look at the last time she played, and it was Sarah Irani in Madrid. Loss in 3 sets. So here's the thing. In case you're not familiar, Caroline Wozniacki was snubbed, okay? She thought she was going to get a wild card into the French Open. She did not. A lot of people are saying, okay, well, what's the problem? Why don't she just go qualify? Sarah Irani's, she's qualifying. She's not complaining. Well, here's the thing. They waited too long. They waited in hopes of getting a wild card to where the entry for qualifying had passed. So therefore, she cannot play in the French Open. It's risky. So she was banking on her star power, her marketability, to secure her a spot in the French Open. Didn't work. Didn't happen. What do you guys think? Just on the facts alone, what do you think? Now, look, she got in at the Australian Open. She got in at the U.S. Open last year. How many wild cards do these players expect to get? And I bring that up to say this. I've told you guys, Venus Williams, look, she's great. We all know she's number 5 on my all-time female list. Okay, the injuries really set her back. You know, the most decorated Olympic female tennis player of all time. And at one point, she was the most decorated Olympic tennis player of all time, male or female. I think she might even still be. But listen, at what point do we stop giving Venus wild cards? Wild cards. I'm going to take a page from Naomi Osaka's father's book, and this is directed towards all the players. I love them all. But if you're a tennis player, you're going to have to be a tennis player. Okay? If you retire from the game and you come back, and this is what Caroline's father said. He said, look, we didn't play, we didn't put in all this work over so many years to have to go back and be an ITF player. Well, listen, guy, you retired. You retired. I mean, you can, and this is one thing about tennis that makes it unfair. Okay. Yes, if you're a great player, if you're a Hall of Fame player, we love the work that you've put in over the years. We love the entertainment, the memories, and we've supported you during those runs. But when you call it quits and you retire and you hang it up and you decide to come back, it's unfair to take opportunities from people that are currently on that journey grinding. I think that's unfair, right? In fact, I think the whole wild card system is unfair to begin with, right? So that probably needs to be revamped and changed, right? At least make it modern. I think it's simple. And I told you guys the French Open wild cards that were going to be handed out. I told you the players that would get in it, especially the French players. Look, if you are a local native to that slams location, I think you should be considered to get in. It's an opportunity it's an opportunity for the locals. Okay, it makes their dream come true. And for the players, you say, hey, well, what about the players that are from countries that don't, host a Grand Slam? What do they do? Okay, well, this is where it gets a little messy. Okay, and this is where the controversy is going to come, regardless of how you spin it, regardless of what you think. It's going to be controversial. I think that's when we consider the players from those countries that are hosting the slam, or the players that have, you know, that are coming back from the injuries, that lost their ranking, that are holding on to, an injury reserve. Those are the players we have to consider. But if you're a retired player and you're coming back, one wild card here is good, two is good, three is pushing it. I mean, you've had adequate time to climb the rankings. No? Yes? I mean, you came back last U.S. Open, you got a wild card, two wild cards into two slams. If you can't climb the rankings off of that, then you probably should be on the ITF. Guys, come on, let's be honest here. This needs to be said. If you're a Hall of Fame player and you've been given two wild cards into two slams, and you've played several tournaments in between, and you cannot climb the rankings enough to qualify for a slam, then you should be in qualifiers. You should go down to the ITF level, right? I mean, how many wild cards are we going to give out, guys? It's tough enough. And I talked about players complaining about, the tour monitoring top tier players entering too many 250s. Is this what tennis has come to? We want to take opportunities away from the girls that have to grind city to city, country to country, making $1,000 a match behind on their expenses and just, not profitable. We want to take more opportunities away from them because we decide, we hung it up too early. And look, I'm not taking a shot at anyone in particular. I love Caroline. Right. Caroline, we saw Coco recently pass Caroline's record for most Master 1000 wins, before the age of 21. Caroline was a teenage phenom, guys, right? I mean, her first year on the tour, she was winning championships. She's amazing. We know that. But we also got to look at a picture here. Since she's come back, she hasn't necessarily been productive. I mean, she's been given several wild cards. So let's take a look at 23, right? 23 last year, 4-3, 7-8 this year. Caroline has not done well against anyone inside the top 10. She's winless against Iga Swiatek, Sabalenka, Coco. In fact, the big three, as I see it, Iga, Arena, and Coco. She's lost twice to all of them. Coco's beat her twice. We saw that amazing match between her and Coco at the U.S. Open. Arena's beat her twice. Iga's beat her twice. Pegula's beat her. Marqueta's beat her. Sakkari's beat her a ton of times. Ons has beat her. Yelena's beat her a ton of times. You know, she's winless. And I talked about Svitolina, how Svitolina has just dominated her over her career. Caroline has not done well against these top players. So, and I've gave you guys the statistics. Females over 30 have 0% chance to win a Grand Slam. It's not going to happen. Serena Williams is literally the only player in the last 32 slams over 30 to win a Grand Slam. So if you're over 30, your chance of winning a Grand Slam, unless your name is Serena Williams, is 0%. It's not going to happen. Simona Halep, let's be honest, if she did get a wild card, would she win the French Open? Of course not. You saw her darn near pass out against Paula Badosa. She needed rocks to do that. And I don't know what's up with Simona Halep, because she is now saying it's not Patrick's fault. Look, I don't know what's going on there, okay? And it's none of my business, but the reality here is that's probably a lot messier than we think it is, right? But Caroline Wozniacki, guys, she's had an amazing career. She's a Hall of Famer, guys. 30 championships. She's got 3 Slam final appearances. She's lost a couple times at the U.S. Open. We saw her win the Australian Open in 18. She's made the quarterfinals a couple times in the Roland Garros as well, 17 and 2010. Wimbledon, she's made the round of 16 6 times, right? She's solid. Now, she's approaching 700 wins. Whether or not she'll get there, I don't think so, because her schedule is really light. If she didn't retire, she'd probably have around 800 wins now. You know, probably around 800 wins, maybe close to 850. Solid career, guys. Solid career. I mean, predominantly a hard player, right? Over 400 wins on hard. Not really. I mean, she's had a decent win percentage on clay. You know, like I just talked about her she's made the quarterfinal at the French Open twice. So, what do you guys think? Was she robbed? And let's take a look at Emma Raducanu, who she's not even going through qualifiers, right? She said she's just going to get ready for grass season, which, I mean, here's the thing with that, okay? We all know she's going to get a wild card into Wimbledon. That's without a doubt. That's going to happen. So she'll be in the tournament. But if she can't pick up wins and gain points, does she get a wild card in the U.S. Open? I think she does, without a doubt. And I told you, she's going to be the exception for that. She's going to be the exception for that. She deserves to. She's a U.S. Open champion. But after that U.S. Open run, I think the wild cards have to be done for her. She's too young. She's too young to be getting these wild cards all over the place. And we're reaching a level on the WTA Tour of entitlement that's crazy. The fans, yeah, they're coming for Woz. They're saying the entitlement she is showing is ridiculous. I think it is a bit too. To lash out at the WTA when you've announced your comeback, I mean, it's been, what? We're talking like 9, 11, 10 months now? 10 months? 9 months? That's plenty of time to go out and win points. If you're, if you still have it, which she does, she still has it. She has to go get it. Go earn it, guys. Look at Gal Monfils. When he had those injuries, he was ranked like what? Nearly 400. People said he was done. He's too old. He's 37 now. They said he was too old. He was done. He said he was calling players to, hit with and practice with, and no one wanted to work him out. Coaches didn't want to coach with him. They said, look, he's difficult. He's not disciplined. Guys, he's the oldest player to win. He's one of the oldest players to win ATP championship, and he's one of the oldest ATP players of all time to be inside. What is he like inside the top 30 now? Top 40? So one of the oldest to ever be ranked inside the top 40. Unbelievable. And of course, Novak is younger than him, so that's not a record that Novak's going to have unless he, plays past Gale, but which he will. That's inevitable. But Gale, at his age, is one of the oldest players of all time to be ranked inside. I actually think he is the oldest player to be ranked inside the top 40. Actually, yeah, I think he is. Amazing. But he said he had to work. He said Gale said he wakes up every day and he runs. I think he said he runs like 10 miles every day, 7 in the morning. Guys, you got to put in the work. And I see a lot of these ladies, and I've talked about this a lot this week. The female body's not made for this. Once these females hit 30, like that's and it's males too. I just see a lot of diva mentality, diva attitude, a lot of Madonnas out here, and come on, ladies. Like, I'm going to take this page from Osaka's father again. You're a tennis player, play tennis. And I'm not trying to upset anyone, but this is truth. You have adequate time, you have the resources, get babysitters, play ball. You can't keep getting free stuff. Go work for it. The average person in life has to go get it in the mud and put in work daily. They don't want to hear about the complaining. They're not going to care or show pity or sympathy for you. Go play. You're a tennis player. Go play matches. You can get in any tournament you want. Go play and win matches, win points. I mean, let's be honest. If you think about it, it's not that hard. Play 500s, play 1000s, do what Rebecca did early on in the season and play every darn tournament and win points. It's not hard to get inside the top 100 when you're that good. Stop complaining. And this lets me know that a lot of players, they're not dedicated. How can you be dedicated if you're playing a half schedule? And if you're injured, okay, I get it. And that's another thing that I want to talk about, because I think the ATP is becoming full of prima donnas as well. They're all complaining. Novak called what was that, Madrid? He said this tournament is he just chewed him a new one. Look at Casper, Miami Open. He called it basically not in these exact words, but he called it a trash event. Guys, there's way too much complaining going on. Play tennis. What are we doing all this complaining for? It's like, they're complaining about they don't have enough towels. Like, come on, man. What are we doing here? Complaining about towels and water bottles. It's crazy, man. All these millionaires, it's like they forget that you're living your dream. You're living your dream, and you're doing what you want to do, and all you want to do is complain. Serena Williams played tennis. She played tennis on a court that was freaking cracked and chipped cement with freaking used balls they had to steal. And you look at these players, all they do is complain. And yes, Caroline and Serena, they're really good friends. But I just think sometimes people just forget their humble beginnings. They forget where they came from. They just want to, they reach a level where it's like, yeah, I deserve to get a wild card. You don't. There's so many ladies on tour struggling to get money. They need opportunities, and you guys, you showing up, you're taking these opportunities from them. I don't like that aspect either. A lot of people, they're mad at Sasha for getting in. Come on, man, this girl's grinding her butt off, man. Like, come on, we don't want to steal opportunities from people that need them. It's like a lot of these players. Look, you've been successful, you've made tons of money, you've had your time. once you call it quits, I mean, I don't think you should be able to just come back and just take opportunities from people. I think you have to prove that you want it. You want to come back, prove you want to be there. And this goes for Emma Raducanu. It's like, if you're healthy, go play. Like Emma Raducanu, listen, she's big time. I understand that, but let's be honest. She hasn't done much. And I've watched her on the ITF, so I knew who she was going into the U.S. Open. And she reminds me of Alicia Parks. Is going to face Sarah Sieto tomorrow. Sarah reminds me of Emma Raducanu. And I've told you guys that I think Sarah is good. She's good. And Alicia Parks, she gets some weird matchups, guys. They really put her up against players, and you have to know these players like I do to know that Sarah's. I don't think it's going to be an easy match for her. It's a good Alicia, if she does what she's capable of doing, right? I think she's been in a little slump. Well, it's obvious she's been in a slump lately. Venus Williams watched your match. She was cheering her on, and that was good to see. In case you don't know, Venus and Parks have the fastest serve at the U.S. record, and they have connections as well. Rick Macy coached both of them. That was Serena and Venus' early coach there that kind of helped them, in Florida, where Richard moved the family to Florida and got them in camp. Jennifer Capriati caught in the hotel, smoking weed with the boys. That must have been a fun time, guys, because just seeing Serena, in the movie, she said, what did she say? I think, if I remember correctly, she said, Rick, if you give me a cheeseburger and a Pepsi, I promise I'll beat so and so. Serena, that was hilarious. She said, if you get me a cheeseburger and a Pepsi, I promise I'll beat them. Little Serena, that's hilarious, guys. But listen, Emma Raducanu, Sarah Sieto reminds me of Emma Raducanu. She's good. She's a good lower level player, and she's young too. She reminds me of Emma Raducanu. I think she's good, but if Alicia Parks if she serves well and does what she does, she does have new coaching, so her game again, it's Coco. It's a process. They're working on new things, but she's gotta keep her confidence. I think Alicia had a bad break in the schedule, and a lot of you guys don't really know what happened. So she won her championship in Lyons, France. She, instead of having the opportunity to defend her title, which, look, that's 250 points right there. That can keep her inside the top 50, top 40. What happened was they didn't have that tournament again, so she never had the chance to defend her title. And then I forget what tournament it was. The tournament that took place on that same date, she had to qualify for. It's just a bad break. That's a bad break, guys. Bad break. That's how the tour can be unfair. I don't think the tour is unfair when you're coming back and you've already got a couple wild cards and you want another one. I don't think the tour is unfair to you when you're not showing that you're capable of being a top 100 player. I don't think the tour is unfair to you. I do think the tour is unfair to you when you don't have the opportunity to defend your title, and then the tournament that's replacing it, you're now automatically put in a qualifying spot, because that's not fair, you know. So those are different situations, but nonetheless, back to Emma Raducanu. I think Emma Raducanu she's got to be a tennis player. Okay, there's been so much going on in that camp. Yes, we understand the injuries, and we wish every player a healthy career, a healthy season, healthy tournaments. We don't want to see anyone injured. I've been through serious sports injuries. It's nothing you want to wish on anyone. But Emma's healthy now. There's no reason she shouldn't be playing qualifiers, because the fact that she's now going to shut it down until grass season, and yeah, we have one more tournament, right? Well, let's just say the French Open. So one more tournament until grass season. I mean, that tells me you're not really concerned with improving your ranking, because that tells me you're not really wanting to go be a professional. That tells me you kind of want handouts. Let's just be honest, because what's going to happen in early grass season? Emma doesn't have a grass career. It's non-existent. She doesn't have a long tenure in grass, and yes, she's from there, but the reality here is a lot of players in the UK, grass is it's seasonal for the most part, right? It's tough. Now, grass was the original surface of tennis players if we go back, and we do know that, but it is seasonal, and it's not really the type of surface that you can master year round because it's seasonal. So the fact that she's just skipping the rest of the clay season, she did well in Germany, tells me that she just wants that handout. But what's gonna happen? I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. She'll get a wild card. She'll get a favorable matchup, which is not really how it should be as a wild card. She's gonna get a favorable matchup in the first round. She's gonna be stacked in a crazy draw to where she's gonna be bounced out in the second round. And then what? Now we got to get ready for the Olympics, where you know that she'll probably, and that's the other thing, if she would go to the French Open, because the cutoff point for the Olympics is the end of the French Open. Let's say, I do think if she went to qualifiers, she would beat this competition in qualifiers. Okay, get some points, make it reasonable for the Olympics, right? Make it reasonable for the Olympics. But she does have a couple things going for her where she could get into the Olympics as well. I'll have to double check where she stands, but I mean, you got players there. You got Katie Bolter, Harriet Dart's been playing well, so I mean, you do have players there that legitimately deserve it. But she's got a couple things on her side that could see her get into the Olympics. But again, what's going to happen after grass in the Olympics? We're going to be right back in the same situation. She's going to have to go to Toronto. She's going to have to play DC. She's going to have to play the Western and Southern Open. I think she'll do better on hard because she's a better hard player, but we're going to roll right into the same situation where she's looking for a wild card at the US Open. If she gets bounced out early in those tournaments where it's a good chance she will, then what's going to happen? I told you guys Layla would have the better career. Okay, we can go back to that. I told you Layla would have the better career. And it's certainly shaping out to be that way. And we're seeing injuries. When you have lingering injuries when you're young, they just don't go away, unfortunately. It's a sign of what's to come. Okay, if you don't address little things, they become big things. And I'm seeing a lot of players complaining. I want to talk about Raducanu too. Elena Raducanu, and look, I do agree the schedule's grueling, but she's complaining a little too much now. It's beginning to be a reoccurring thing where she's just complaining and complaining and complaining. At the end of the day, you're doing what you love, you're making good money. If you're not healthy, you're not healthy, shut it down. But it's starting to be a little bit too much complaining. I could see the players, look, complaining about Cancun. Okay, those courts were horrible. But complaining about the schedule when you're playing tournaments you don't have to, that it's starting to get a little ridiculous here. You know, they're starting to be a little bit too, and this is why I like Sabalenka. This is why I like Coco. They just play. The only time you're going to hear Coco complain is when she's jerked 6 times by the chair umpire, or where the chair umpire has literally overruled 4 calls trying to see her lose a match. That's when she steps up to complain. But other than that, Coco, Sabalenka, they're not retiring from matches. They're not trying to hold up players. They're not causing drama. They're minding their business and they're playing ball. That's one thing I like about Sabalenka. She's like, look, it is what it is, right? You love the game play, and that's one thing that I can relate to. Look, let's just play. Let's just show up and play. I tell my guys all the time, look, let's just play. You get a match that's canceled. You work out the schedule. I'm like, let's just play. It doesn't matter. We just want to play. And I think we're starting to see a lot of complaining, and that's where Iga hasn't complained. She's like, look, Iga's again like Sabalenka, Coco. Iga's like, whatever. Let's just play. And I feel fine. I don't have a problem with the schedule. You know. But I do think a lot of that is the injuries, which is unfortunate. But I think a lot of the complaining is coming from the injuries. But Caroline Wozniacki, listen, guys, she's a Hall of Famer, one of my favorite players. She's currently ranked. She's ranked 117, so she's right there. But I think, and again, if she would have got the wild card here into the French Open, then she'll be set for Wimbledon. right? She would have the points she would need because, I mean, chances are she'd get a favorable matchup. She'd get out of the first round. She'd get the points. She'll be set for Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. But the reality here is, I think they're a lot more strict when it comes to this tournament at this point in time because of the stakes with the Olympics. There's a lot going on with these wild cards where if players like Raducanu get this wild card here, that could change everything for the Olympics. This is the cutoff tournament for the Olympics. So I think they were a lot more strict and it made sense to give them to the French players. And someone actually talked about a while back, they talked about how Vavara is now a resident of France and her possibly taking an Olympic spot from the France players, from the French players, excuse me. And what's my take on that? It's interesting. It is. But again, my take on that is kind of simple. You got to win. You have to win matches, right? You have to win matches is what it all comes down to. Win matches. Simple as that. Win matches because things are not going to go your way all the time. At some point in time, you're going to have to show up and win matches and prove you belong where you think or say you belong. You're going to have to prove it. Right? What do you guys think? You're going to have to prove it. That's just my personal opinion. But in terms of the French players, I do think it is interesting. I mean, I don't know. Do I have the French players who I don't know if I can run that offhand without knowing. I don't know if I can. Who's the number one French player? Um, I don't know. Is it Clara Buell right now? I don't know if it's Clara Buell. Is it okay? French players. Give me a moment to think this. French players. Buell's doing good. Favar's doing good. Oh my! How can I forget Caroline Garcia? So Caroline Garcia is the number one French player. Buell's got to be there. I want to say Diane Perry, Ocean Dodden. Oh, so Vavar. Okay, so Vavar is not going to cause an issue anyway because she's not in the top four. So it's Caroline Garcia. Bonjour, comment allez-vous? Then it's Buell because she had that new leap in rankings for what she did early in the season. By the way, I love Buell. Good job, Buell. Congratulations. Diane Perry and Ocean. Okay, so Vavar is not going to be an issue anyway. But, however, Vavara might be, it could be an issue, yeah. Because, well, then you're going to have to earn it. Because Vavara and Elise, if they do well, and Chloe Paquette and Farrell and John, oh, this is going to be a good race. If any of them go deep and they're all so close within a round or two, then that could shuffle. Carolyn and Buell should be set. Diane Perry, it's a little close. Yeah, this is going to be good, guys. This is going to be good. So as of now, Vavara is not going to be an issue. If things were to end today, your top French players for the Olympics, Garcia, Buell, Perry, and Ocean. This is going to be good, though. Does the French team have a chance? They have a chance, man, because you got Perry and Buell. They love clay, and Garcia. She's pretty good on clay too. The French players got a chance, guys. We'll be in France. We'll be there supporting the ladies. That's gonna be fun. But anyway, here's what I want to say. We're gonna wrap this up because I want to talk about the matches today. Caroline is an amazing player, but she struggled against this recent top 10. So I don't think her chance of winning the French Open, I think it's a 0% probability. It's just not going to happen. Even if she got a wild card, Caroline's not going to win. Not only that, I don't think she's been healthy. I think she's had a good career, but I think she's been a bit undersized her career. I think she's lacked the power to really be dominant in terms of winning multiple slams. But with that said, she's had an amazing career and she's been one of my favorite players. It's not easy to win 30 titles. And she did it 5, 6 years ago, okay, before she retired. So, and I think that the players Caroline played against then, I think they were better technically. I think they were more just fundamentally sound. And I think they were better tennis players than the players now. Now we're seeing a lot of players that are, it's more, and I talked about in terms of players, I talked about Marta a lot. I just felt in she changed, which is why I think she's doing better. A couple of years ago, Marta was just focusing a lot more on strength and conditioning. I felt she was too top heavy. She was too strong and just trying to blast opponents off the court versus learning the sweet science of the game, strategy, you know, doing what works well for you, using your opponent's weaknesses against them, focusing on your game plan. A lot of times players struggle when they focus on what their opponent's trying to do. Focus on what you need to do. Make your opponent react to you. Great players do what they do, and their opponents react to them. And now we're seeing now we're seeing Marta Kashuk start to do that more, right? Now she's focusing on her game and what works well for her, and she lost some of that weight up top, so she's not as top heavy. Whereas now a lot of players versus that last couple generations, I feel they're focusing more on strength and blasting opponents off the court. Now, we reached a point where Serena's serve changed the game, where we saw players now just trying to overpower players off the court. Coco got into that phase, right? When Coco first came on the tour, she was defensive. She was very smart, very tactical. That's how she was able to make it to the fourth round at Wimbledon at only 15. While these other players that are dominant now, we're watching her, little Coco 15, come up from the juniors, right? Whereas I felt Coco started to change from her defensive, and this is why she brought back her old junior coaches, right? She started to try and match power for power these adult women when she was still growing into her body, right? Whereas again, the players this generation, they're more focused on strength and trying to blast you off the court and overpower you with short rallies. Whereas that Woz generation, that era, 20, 30 shot rallies deep. Great tennis makers, great tennis players, great shot makers between the lines. That's what we want to see. We want to see tennis. You know, the Sabalenkas of today's world, they're just the Yelenas, they just want to overpower you. And I mean, it's fun to watch sometimes, but I would much rather watch the shot making, the sweet science of constructing a point. And that's Waz's generation. I think she just played with better top 10 in terms of fundamentals and skill set, right? You can't tell me that today's players have more skills than those players. They don't. I don't think they do. I think they're stronger. They have better resources. They're winning points shorter and quicker. They have more electronics and digital technology to help them be stronger and more efficient. But I don't think they're better, fundamentally sound players. I don't think so. I just don't think so. But nonetheless, Wise, we love you. It's unfortunate you did not get in, but again, I'm going to take a page from Osaka's father's playbook. A great coach. If you're a tennis player, just play tennis. Tennis in a minute. We'll be back, guys. Show some love for Waz. She's not in. What about Emma Raducanu? She's not in. Simona Halep? She's not in. A lot of snubs. I don't think Venus is not in. I don't think none of them are snubs. You guys have all contributed a lot to the game, but it's time for the next generation to come through. Comment below.